Hello, anybody on? If anybody's on, go ahead and post in the comments so I can see you. Todd should be joining us soon. Another minute or two. Oh, okay, here he is. Can you hear me, Todd? All right. Are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. Okay, so there's John. Hi, John. For some reason, I'm unable to reply to comments on this. Hi, Tenua. I can, we can reply verbally, but for some reason we aren't allowed to on this platform write in the message part. So when we get questions, we'll just have to verbally answer them. So to everybody that's on, I'm just going to let you know who Todd is. Todd is a veteran from was it U.S. Navy, Todd?
Yes.
U.S. Navy, and so he's versed in a lot of online security. Is that right, Todd?
Yes.
Okay, good. So as soon as we get some questions, we can kind of go from there. But what we can start off with is just some general stuff, maybe. Like talking to your kids about being online and keeping them safe with knowledge and how we talk to them.
Yeah. Well, thank you for having me. First of all, I appreciate it, Jenny, and to all the guests. I have a kind of a unique background because I was in the military, and then I worked for the military for another 10 years after that in uh, focusing as my career path changed. I started focusing on cybersecurity, and a couple of friends of mine got into trouble with some personal cybersecurity incidents, and I was trying to find them resources to help them out, and discovered that all the big companies are worried about other big companies, and nobody's worried about entrepreneurs and families and micro businesses with less than 5 employees. So
Yeah.
my best friend convinced me to make it my life's mission to help small businesses and families with their cybersecurity. So I um, I developed a process and some tools and things like that to bring the same level of cybersecurity that the government and major corporations, defense contractors, and things like that use to keep their selves safe. And I found a way to provide that same level of service at a much, much lower cost that's actually affordable and doable by a family and or a small business. And
Mhm.
the reason why I mentioned that is I like to focus on human behaviors. I mean, we all see in the news, this pipeline got ransomware and shut down, or this other meatpacking plant, or Target, or Home Depot, or whatever. And you hear that, it was some weird named virus that came out of Russia or China or some other major nation. But
Yeah.
what you don't hear is how it actually got onto your computer, how it actually got into the network of that business, how it actually got into that family's network. Um,
Mhm.
and that's mostly human behaviors. Uh, so that's what I like to focus on. I mean, some
Okay.
guy in Russia might have made it and he might have sent it out, but it was a person working at that company that clicked the email, that opened that attachment, that
Oh,
downloaded that picture, or left their password written on a sticky note stuck on their monitor so that everybody walking past could see it. um you know
so
those
that's weird because the other night I was in Bible study, an online Bible study, and a woman came on there and she was saying about how she was at work and she got, she had gotten training about online security and stuff like that. And she said she really paid attention in this class, and she goes, I don't know why, but I just paid attention. And she goes, and then I got an email, and what they had told me in the training was not to open that email and to immediately contact so and so or whatever. And she goes, for some reason, it hit me where I needed to not open that email and contact so and so. And she goes, she goes, I was so happy because I did my job. And she goes, they were so happy with me. And she goes, so many people don't do that. They don't listen.
right.
And then something happens with the company. Yeah.
And
So, yeah, that's great that you mentioned that because I was like,
it's human nature, and that's why they use it. It's called
yeah.
social engineering. They use our human nature against us. um
Uh-huh.
I have a meme that I like to show people, that um it's how you think you've been hacked. And it shows some guy in a hoodie in his mom's basement and all in the dark, typing away a million words a minute
Yeah.
on his keyboard in some kind of, coding software programming code.
Right.
That's not how you get hacked. How you get hacked is those Facebook
Yeah.
quizzes. If you ever think about this, the quizzes that float around on Facebook, where'd you meet your husband? What's your favorite place to eat? What's your favorite kind of food? Who's your third grade teacher? Those are the same
Question.
questions you answered for security questions when you opened a bank account.
Right. Like, what's your mother's last
So
name?
I don't need to
Yeah.
spend hours trying to hack some bank's network if I can just send out a survey and get half of the country on to answer this stupid little quiz on Facebook and give me their secret code words and everything for their password. I can get into their accounts anyways. And it's a whole lot
Right.
easier if you give me the information than it is if I have to go looking for it. So
Mhm.
that's and that kind of goes into that human behavior part that I was talking about. So
Right.
um, to get into the actual nuts and bolts, one of the things I like to look at is So who's in charge of online safety in your house? I mean, it's easy at work, you know, your boss is or whatever. But who's in charge in your household? You know, and there was actually a survey out that they ask a bunch of teens and they ask a bunch of parents, and 44% of the parents said it's mostly their responsibility. 8% thinks that it goes to their children. Um, the teens answered the same question, and
Oh, it's their
62% said it was their
children.
responsibility, and 10% think it's their parents' job. So that's pretty even,
Oh
but
my
it's
gosh.
obvious that nobody really knows who's responsible. That wasn't like an overwhelming,
Yeah.
oh yeah, my parents got
So,
it, you know. So the bottom line is the correct answer is it's everybody's responsibility. You have to share it equally.
mhm,
I mean, there's no way as
right.
a parent that you can be watching everything your kids ever post on social media. That's just unrealistic.
True.
Unless you run your house like some Nazi Gestapo or something, it's just not happening. Um, so you have to teach them how to do it themselves so that they do it properly. And that's one of the things I
Mm,
like to ping on. You know, I like to pick on mothers of small, you know, uh, grade school children. Um, you know,
mhm.
just because it's a good analogy. But you know, you teach your children to look both ways before they cross the street. You know, you stand next to them at the bus stop. You won't let them stand out on the corner by themselves. You make sure you're standing out there
Mm,
at 2:55 every afternoon or whatever to pick them up from the bus and walk them home. But as soon as they come through the
yeah.
door, you hand them an iPad with full internet access and let them go disappear on their own, untethered to the internet. And it's like we need to teach children how to use the internet the same way you teach them to look both ways when you cross the street, the same way you teach
Right.
girls not
Common
to let the
sense.
person in the front see the car when they go to the store. You know, it's it's one
Yeah.
of those type of situations. Um, so the most obvious thing that's going on right now is cyberbullying. So to talk about that for a
Mhm.
minute, um, when the reasons why uh, cyberbullying exists um, is because it's easier to say something to somebody anonymously online.
Behind a
You get
screen.
mob mentality. Everybody jumps in and starts bashing. If you were actually standing in around in person, people wouldn't say half of that stuff to your face. Um, but so the reasons why they get bullied with girls, the largest majority, almost half of them, are because of appearance, which personally I think is horrible.
Yeah.
We have a society that's worried about
Where
appearance
everybody
so
looks
much
like.
that girls feel so much pressure on that. With guys, it's the other way around. Their appearance is still the highest number, but theirs is more evenly split. It's almost like a third, a third, a third, with appearance, sexual orientation, and political beliefs. And obviously, political beliefs is pretty low on the scale because um, most teenagers don't really care about politics so much. They're more worried about their own little environment. But
Mhm.
those are the biggest things. So there's ways that you can mitigate how you get uh, treated online. One is if you are being bullied, um, and this is things that you need to teach your children, you know, don't react to it. Just ignore it. They're looking for attention. If somebody says something about, oh, I saw your picture online yesterday, those are the stupidest glasses I ever saw, or whatever, you know, those are so last year, just ignore that stuff. If they don't get any traction, it'll go away. If you start an argument
Mhm.
back and forth, and the next thing you know, more people are piling on and the thing's going viral.
Human psychology.
Yep.
Yeah. That's just
Um,
how it happens. That's how.
and if you can, you know, block them. And the
Mm.
biggest thing that I like to
I
make
still do
sure,
that.
yeah, just block their account, block
Yeah.
their, if it's a, you know, and if you can't do that and you have to go through an administrator to get it done or something, report them to the administrator and say, hey, this guy keeps bugging the heck out of me. Can you block him? But I think people need to realize, and I think most adults know this if they think about it, but definitely the children need to be made aware. There's two different worlds. The online world and the real world are not exactly the same. In
Exactly.
today's
I was
world,
just
they're
thinking
kind of
that the other day.
merging together, but you can be anything online.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
what people
just like
want
this
you
being an
to.
example right now, you have no idea if my name is really Todd Mitchell and I really work at Cybersecurity for Biz. I could type anything in there, you know?
Right, right. It's what people want you to see.
Right. So, when you got these girls that think they're getting, flirting with some nice looking 16-year-old boy who's going to sweep them off
Mhm.
their feet and make their life better forever. It could be some 50-year-old guy in a foreign country who's got a passport ready to disappear
Come
him and
get
nobody
you.
will ever see him again.
Yeah.
you
Lord.
know, I mean,
Yeah.
that's kind of the reality of the way the world works, and they need to understand that. So they need to understand that unless you really know who that person is,
Yeah.
be careful what information you're giving them.
Even it doesn't even have to be somebody overseas. It can actually be someone in your next town that's coming to get you too. So you
Yeah,
really, um, you have to be aware of. I think you mentioned this once to me on another interview. Um, you have to be aware of what's in your picture. Okay. Uh, like there shouldn't be like signs, like a street sign
yeah,
maybe or whatever, that
yep.
shows people where you are on a regular
Exactly.
basis.
You have to be careful of the background information.
Yes.
If I can see over your shoulder out the window and see snow on the ground, I know you live in the north, and if we're supposedly in Florida, I know you're not really in Florida anymore, and it's again, whatever. So those
Yeah,
are the type of things that little clues that you can look for. Um,
exactly.
you know, um, the next thing I want to discuss is identity theft, and this is
Okay.
a huge one uh, for families. And one of the biggest ways that identity theft can occur and go unchecked for years is your children's social security number. I mean, if you think about
Yeah.
it, children
Right.
are born
I never checked my kids' social security numbers ever.
exactly. So, nowadays, maybe not so much back when we were kids, but nowadays, um, they won't let a baby out of the hospital without a social security number.
Yeah, right.
It's
Yeah,
automatic.
they
I mean,
still
so
take
you're
it.
not literally
No.
born with one, but you're pretty much born with one.
Mm.
So, you know, the first time your children run a credit report is when they go to buy a car when they're 16 or 17 years old or get a
Mhm.
job or go to college or something. And by
Yeah.
then, their credit has been out there for 17 years and nobody's ever looked at it.
Or maybe even
So
longer. Yeah.
I recommend the first thing you do after you have a baby is freeze their credit. The all three you have to do it three times because you have to do it for each of the three major credit bureaus.
Yeah.
But it's free. It's just a little paperwork hassle,
Hmm.
and you can unfreeze it whenever you need it. But realistically, that's like 15 years from now. So
Right.
you
Yeah.
know. But yeah, and if you haven't done that in the past and your kids are teenagers, I suggest you go run a credit report on them because you may find out that somebody used their social security number to buy a house and it's been foreclosed for 10 years and you don't even know about it.
Hmm.
And unfortunately, you won't find out about it until they uh, go to when they go to look at getting a job or applying for college or something, and now all of a sudden they've got bad credit and they don't qualify for student loans or something. So
Mm.
that's one of those things you need to, just freeze it until you need it. And that actually applies for adults too.
Yes. So we have a question right now that actually I'm an expert at.
Okay.
Situational awareness applies to both cyber and reality. So you're the cyber awareness person. I'm the in reality awareness. I was in self-defense instruction for many, many, many years.
Yeah.
So I can kind of answer that a little bit, that little statement. So I left um, doing self-defense on a physical level a couple of years ago, almost, well, a year and a half ago, maybe 2 years ago. And because violence begets violence. Okay. So that's my reasoning for leaving. And as a Christian, my beliefs and my spirituality has kind of grown since then. And so now I trust in the Lord over the physical part of that. But to people who, aren't quite there yet, I think that's an option for some people, not so much for me anymore, because once you receive the Lord, it kind of takes you in a different direction in life. Um, so that's my answer to that. And the cyber part, you've
Yeah.
kind of already touched on. So we'll go ahead and move on from there.
Yep. But that's a very true statement. As much as, you wouldn't walk down a dark alley by yourself at night,
Hmm.
you shouldn't, you know,
Common sense.
you shouldn't be, you need to think about the same situation with, basically like what I was saying about before, having a young child or a teenage girl, playing on social media unattended for hours at a time can get
Yeah,
in just as much trouble as they would if they were walking down a dark
yeah,
alley.
exactly.
Um,
Exactly.
one of the things that you can do, I wanted to kind of shift the conversation into, what you can do to, oh, sorry, my phone's going crazy over here. Into what you can do to protect yourself. Uh,
Mhm,
and what what the biggest thing is your password. So think of your password as like a key. You know,
mhm.
um, everything is password protected nowadays, from your phone to all your accounts, everything. And I know passwords are a pain in the butt, and nobody likes big, long, crazy ones because they can't remember them, and you have to change them every month. Excuse me. But the thing to remember is that is your key. And if you were locking your front door, do you want that old skeleton key that goes down and has the one little thing that sticks up like they used to have 50 years ago? Or do you want the new complicated one that's double-sided and has a chip in it that only works on a certain lock and everything, kind of like a car key? So your password needs to be the same way. It needs to be a strong password. And by strong,
Mhm.
I'm talking upper letters, lowercase letters, numbers,
Symbols.
alphanumerics, which are symbols. Basically,
Yeah,
you need to use everything on the keyboard that's available to you.
yeah.
And the reason for that is big math. It's just complicated math problems. But if you only use numbers, like say take an old bicycle lock with the three numbers that you used to use, back when you were a kid to lock your bike up at school or whatever. And
Mhm.
you've got 000 to 999. That's 1,000 possibilities. You could literally sit there for a couple of days straight and go 000, 001, 002, 003, and just keep going.
Eventually get
Sooner
it.
or later, you're going to open that lock.
Yeah.
Um, if the if that little spin wheel had 0 through 9, A through Z, capital A through Z, and then 20 or 30 symbols on top of it, and it's now 109 possibilities each time instead of 10 possibilities each time. You're talking
Right.
hundreds of thousands of possible combinations instead of 1,000. And it's literally going to take you forever to go through all the combinations to get to that. And that's the
Right. There's
thinking
just
behind
too
your
many
password.
options. Too many
Yep. So
options
you
there.
use all the available buttons on your keyboard that you can get, and you make sure your password is at least 12 characters long.
Yeah.
Now, there's some tips. It depends on how you are. Um, you can make a couple of words phrase, your favorite movie thing, title to a movie or a
Mhm.
poem or a song or the first sentence of a
Things
song.
combined.
And
Yeah.
then you start tweaking you don't want a name that's found in the dictionary. So then you take it and you say, oh, okay, make all the A's into at signs, make all all the E's into a 3, or make all the L's into a 1, or, whatever sticks in your brain is something logical. And now you have a bunch of words that are all gobbledygook, can't be found in a dictionary, and don't mean anything to anybody but you.
Right. Right.
And that becomes your password, so to
What
speak.
about like when your phone suggests a strong password? Is that okay?
Those, yes. So those are
Okay.
called password managers. Most of your phone operating systems come with them. Your browsers have them now. You can buy a third-party one if you don't trust Google and Android and all those. Um,
Mhm.
you can get a third-party one. LastPass is a good one. LastPass is what it's called because it's supposedly the last password you ever need. Because now you only have to
That's
remember
so
a
good.
password to get into that, and it remembers all your other passwords. Um,
Oh,
it- that's basically what that is it's kind of like a mediator. It's like every time somebody asks you for a password, you just give them the password to your LastPass account, and then LastPass gives them the right password. uh, but
okay.
you can do the
Last
same thing
pass.
with your browser. Chrome and Firefox and Edge all remember passwords. They all
Mhm.
recommend their own crazy license plate gobbledygook looking ones, and those are fine. The You just have to make sure you keep up maintenance on it and make sure that they're um, uh, I would still personally, just I guess because I'm a control freak, I would still keep a record somewhere somehow of some of those passwords. Otherwise, you can't get back
Right.
into an account. But you usually can because all you have to do is say, "Oh, I forgot my password," and it lets you get a new one. So,
I have a friend who writes down all her passwords. Is that safe? Like in her office?
um,
But she leaves them in like a
so
Rolodex.
technically, it's not really. It depends on where you're at. If you work in
Okay.
cube land with 300 other people, it's not safe. If you're
Right.
talking about your desk in
Yeah.
your spare bedroom that you made up in the back corner of the house, by the
Right.
time
And it's
somebody
locked
gets
up.
into your office and is looking at your desk and can find that sheet with all your passwords, you probably got bigger problems than just losing a couple of Wi-Fi passwords. you know,
Right.
I mean, this is common sense. I'm just thinking about it this way.
Yeah.
Anybody who doesn't belong in my house is already standing at my desk, sitting at my computer and digging through my inbox to find my bank account
Right. It's
password. I'm
true.
probably in trouble already, anyways. Um, so you have to kind of juggle good security with common sense, and
Yeah.
I mean, you know, uh, um, okay. So the next thing I want to talk about is routers. Speaking of being in your home, so
Yeah.
every home that has internet and every business that has internet has a router. Now,
Right.
most of us are using a little home router that's the little black or white box. Some of them
Yeah.
look like a
The
book or
little
whatever,
thing. Yeah.
a couple of antennas sticking out of it, and it comes with some crazy long password for your Wi-Fi account. But the router itself has a password to get in to change the settings. And
Oh,
by default, that depending on who you are using, so I can tell you right now, if you got Verizon, it's actually pretty decent because Verizon has a sticker on the router that has some crazy long password. If you have Comcast,
so
the
we got people from all over the world, so they're going to have different
yeah, if you
companies and
have,
things like that.
but
So
most of
I'm
the
just Verizon and Comcast is like a U.S. company.
yeah,
Everybody out
um, in most of the routers that you buy in the store
there.
come default. The username is admin and the password is password.
Really?
Unless you go in and change it, that's what it is. And some of them are even set up to where if like the power goes out or you hit the reset button, it goes back to admin and password, and you have to go in and change it again too. So that's something you need to check every
Oh,
once in a while and make sure that it's still what you think it is. Um, and the other bad thing, in my opinion, is by default they come with the lowest security settings to make sure that everything is going to work for everybody. So you need to go in there and adjust the settings and make them the highest that you can and still do what you're trying to do. So I usually recommend is if you know everything works when it's on low, put it on high. If something doesn't work, then you address that one thing and make an exception. This is kind of one of those
okay.
cases of you've got a locked front door and you have a key and people in your house have a key and then you go on vacation and so now your dog walker needs a key. You make an extra key and give it to the dog walker. You don't just leave the front door open all day so that
No.
they can come. It's the same thing with your
Right.
security and your password. You don't make your router security extra low just so everything can get in. You make an exception for that one thing that had a problem, and everything else is still set on high. So that's one thing that I tell people they need to do. Unfortunately, I've seen this more times than I can count of going to people's routers and just, it's admin and password and the set to the lowest security settings.
Something very simple.
And that is literally the gateway. I mean, that's think of your router as the bouncer standing outside the door of the nightclub. I mean, that is what is keeping the rest of the world on the internet from getting into your computer.
Okay.
That's the gatekeeper. So that is like the most important device in your house. As far as your Wi-Fi itself goes, yeah, you should have a good, strong Wi-Fi password, but you need to check your actual router settings and the router password, because those things are usually out of the box default are set to basically very, very low. And like I said, the password is like password or something really simple. And you can usually find that in 2 or 3 seconds by Googling what's my password to my router and put in the model number of your router or something, and it'll tell you right there on the internet what the password is.
Yeah, and then you have to figure out how to change it.
Yeah, so you need to go in and change it. And you can, it's usually pretty simple. Once you get into your router, you can change the password. Some of them, most of the time, if you just Google, how do you change the default password on a Linksys router or a Netgear router or whatever, and it'll tell you right there how to do it. Another thing you can do is back up your information. Years ago, memory was expensive and backups were very complicated. Nowadays, they're not. I don't know where it's at. I don't have it laying out here. You can buy.
I think I pay $1 something a month.
You can buy cloud storage. A lot of like Gmail and things like that give you a certain amount for free anyways. But what I was going to say is I don't trust. I don't have it where I can reach it. I don't trust those guys entirely with my 20 years of baby pictures and whatnot. So I have an external hard drive. I mean, it's like this big, that thick. You can fit it in your shirt pocket. It weighs like, I don't even know what. It's literally the same size as this.
Okay.
And they cost like $50 to $100. You can buy one on Amazon. Okay. That is 2 to 5 terabytes.
That's a lot.
That will literally hold 20 years of pictures. Just back up your stuff, hook your phone up to your computer and download all your pictures to a folder and then move it over to the external hard drive. Yes, you can save it in the cloud and you can do all that other stuff too, but then you still got this one copy sitting, and don't leave it plugged in all the time either. Unplug it when you're not using it. Put it in the bottom of a desk drawer somewhere or something. And that way, if something happens to all your devices in the cloud and Google goes out of business or whatever, you still have your stuff.
You still have something. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. That's what I recommend doing that. And of course, if you want to get really secure, you should encrypt it, and you should, make sure that you check it every once in a while that it still has good data on it and it works and things like that. But and you could do that even with the cloud, is go in there and look and see the biggest thing about the backups is you can set them up so they do them automatically, but you really need to kind of keep an eye on them and be make sure that you're still backing up all your information every Sunday at midnight like you had it set up, and then if you go in there and look and go, oh, I haven't done a backup in 4 months, something happened and the cord got knocked loose or something, so that's the kind of thing you just need to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Another thing you can do is make yourself aware of security compromises to know if you are being hacked. And hacking comes in different forms. I use a generic term, hacking. We could be talking anything from people trying to steal your identity, people trying to cyberbully, major players trying to shut down access to websites and get your bank information, all that kind of stuff. Even sometimes even you'll see, uh, unfortunately, crazy stalker exes, which is another thing that,
Especially
um,
for teenage girls
yeah,
and, well, probably teenage boys too,
it's not even
but,
just teenagers. I've had so many middle-aged women call me up. I call them the crazy stalker ex syndrome. People calling me up talking about their ex-boyfriend, ex-girlfriend, ex-husband, ex-wife, whatever is,
Mhm.
has their iCloud account. So now they're tracking them
Oh,
through their
no.
phone. They're going in and messing with their email account. They locked them out of their bank app or what, and just all kinds of stuff because they have. I mean, if you think about it, if you unfortunately, divorce is messy and breakups and things like that.
Yeah,
But if you had somebody you lived with for a couple of years that knows all your passwords,
they know everything.
they can
Yeah,
cause a lot of damage. So, this
yeah.
is that kind of that mentality of what I was talking about of just being aware of your. So, unfortunately, that's like step one on the breakup checklist is when you get ready to kick somebody to the curb out of your house, you need to run in and change all your passwords, you know, just
Right.
to make sure,
Especially, yeah, yeah.
um, and that, that's something you need to talk to your children about too. And because we all know what happens. I
Mhm.
mean, your teenage daughter has gave your Netflix account password to her friend because she got her Disney Plus account from her friend, so they can all watch each other's stuff and all this. And
Mhm.
the problem with that is that
Then
Netflix
they can
password
go
that
and
you made is
charge
the same
stuff
one you'd
on
use.
your cards and
Yep.
yeah.
It's the same password for Netflix as the same one you use for your bank. So now you don't realize if the half
Um,
of junior high school has your bank account password. you know,
right. Or, even like things like like say your Google account and your cards had, attached to it. Someone has that same password
yeah.
of yours. They can go on and charge whatever they want.
Exactly. I,
Yeah.
I, I use the pyramid theory, and the sitting at the top of the pyramid is your major accounts, which are going to be Android, which is your Gmail, uh,
Gmail.
um, your iCloud account. Oh, not, I should let me rephrase that. Not iCloud account, your Apple ID account, which sits over the top of an iCloud account. Um, so if
Oh, I've
you
never
have an
heard of
Apple
that.
device, you have an Apple ID. If you have a Windows device, you have a Microsoft account. So you either have
Okay.
an Apple account or Microsoft account, one of the two, unless you're like an old school coder making Linux machines in your basement. Um, so you have an Apple or a Microsoft, and both of them use email, and one of the biggest ones is Gmail. So there's Google. So I say those three accounts right there, those are the ones that I don't care what you do with the rest of your passwords, and your Netflix password is like fluffy number one or whatever, who cares? But those
Right.
three accounts right there, you've got to have a strong password. Nobody else knows it, even if, um, and if you get into a situation where you have a messy divorce or breakup with a significant other, then you need
Mm.
to change that password immediately, because those are the ones that, just like you were just talking about, if you have your devices remembering all your other passwords, those are the passwords to get into that device to find all your other passwords. So you really need to
Oh, yeah.
safeguard those three.
So you said Google, Gmail, and what?
Apple.
Apple.
Well,
Depending
you know
on
how I'm dividing in the world into two piles. You got the iPhone
Apple or
users
Windows.
and the Android users. So
So Apple or Windows, basically.
yep, yeah. You either
All
have
right.
a Windows computer or you have an Android phone or an Apple uh, computer or Apple phone.
So John wants to know if you recommend BitLocks. I don't know
BitLock
what those are.
is, well, so generically, I will say yes, but maybe it's not for everybody. That kind of falls into something that's a little bit too complicated for most people, and probably a little overkill. Uh,
Okay.
it's um,
Yeah, I don't even know what a BitLock is. So,
well, so let me I'm gonna cheat and use the internet and see if I can find a good definition of BitLocks. But
okay.
it's uh, it's basically, that's a really crappy definition. Um, Okay, so it exchanges keys basically. And
And our passwords are keys, right?
yeah,
Is that
so well, no, this is it's
different?
an encryption is what it is. And what
Oh,
happens is um so there's a there's a thing on your computer, most operating systems have it built in that uses BitLocker for whole disk encryption. So it'll
mhm,
encrypt your entire hard drive. Um the uh it's really good encryption and it works. That's where um so what happens is if you go into your computer with your password, like you
mhm,
normally would, logging in with your password on your Microsoft account or your Apple ID, um, then you're automatically behind the encryption layer and you can see everything. If somebody was to take that computer and it's not turned on and not logged in, and they just try
mhm.
to get the data off of the hard drive, they can't get it because it's encrypted. All they see is a bunch of gobbledygook, letters and numbers. It's not going to make any sense at all. Um, so it is good, um, but uh, it it kind of could give you a false sense of security because if your computer is already logged in, which a lot of people, so that in order to make it really fully work, you have to do some of the other things that you probably should be doing too, which is making sure that you've got timeouts and auto locking so you can't have to log into your phone every time you pick it up. It doesn't automatically stay logged in. Same thing with your computer. You have to keep your computer automatically logged in. Um, have it so that after a couple of minutes of not being used, it goes to a lock screen and you got to log in again with your password. If you
Yeah,
have
mine automatically does that.
Well, that's what I was going to say is a lot of people don't bother to do that. In a situation, it depends on where you're at. Now, if you travel a lot and you're talking about a laptop and you're taking the thing to Starbucks and McDonald's and hotel rooms and, work and home and it's sitting in your
Mm.
car half the day, yes, you should probably encrypt it and make sure that thing's auto logging off. If you've got a desktop sitting
A
on
lot
top,
of people do that,
yeah,
actually. A lot of people, especially
if
that
you've
I
got a
know in business, they are bringing their laptop everywhere. They're
Yes.
using it all the
Those
time.
people should have encrypted hard drives and they should have it set to like after 30 seconds of non-use, it automatically logs out and you got to log back in again and everything else. If you're talking about a desktop sitting on your teenager's desk in their bedroom that hasn't moved in 5 years,
Uh-huh, not so
you
much.
you don't really need to have that thing lock every time you walk away from the keyboard, because the only
Right.
people that can hack into it is your little sister and your mom. So they probably know your password anyways. So,
Right.
it
Yeah,
just
my kids have done that to me.
it's but
Yeah.
in general, yeah, the BitLocker, the encryption is a good thing.
Okay. All right. Good. All right. So I think we hit a lot of stuff today, and I think we did well. I hope we informed a lot of
Um,
people. I know somebody wrote very informative, so that's very nice.
I got one more piece. Can we write into the chat? I don't know if we
I
can.
can't for some reason, but afterwards I can. Which is what I did for Neil. I
Okay.
put in his
Um,
information and
there's a website, excuse me, called IC3.
how do you,
And this only works in America, I guess, actually.
is it ISEE or I?
ICI, the letter I, the letter C, and the number 3
Okay, IC3.gov.
.gov. And that is the FBI's Internet Crimes Complaint Center. That's where the C3 comes in, Crime
FBI
Complaint Center. So it's Internet Crime Complaint Center, which is I and then 3 C's.
crime.
And the reason
Nice.
why I mentioned that, and for all of you internationals, I apologize. I don't have the information
For
for every
every
country,
country
but I would strongly suggest you find out. You can probably Google it or ask the local police or something, and find out where you
in your
report
country.
internet crimes to in your country. But if you're in America,
Okay.
it's the FBI and it's that IC3.gov, and this is any type of cybercrime, including cyberbullying, um, identity theft, fraud, any of that kind of stuff. These spamming emails you get, if somebody, because we all know, unfortunately, regardless of what kind of daydreams you want to have, nobody has a rich uncle in Nigeria that's going to send them $1 million if you send them $1,000. Um, and those things that you see on the internet are, uh, the spam that's too good to be true is literally too good to be true. So this is where you can report any of that kind of stuff. I think Jenny froze on us. Okay. Well, I don't know if she's coming back or not. Nope, we lost her completely. Okay. So that's all I had. Is there any questions from anybody? And if not, I thank everybody for coming. And if you want to reach out in the future, if you have any questions, my information, you can get through Jenny, and I think she'll send out an email after this, thanking everybody for coming. So I've had a enjoyable, and hopefully you guys got some good, useful information out of it, and it was my pleasure. So I think that's all we had for today. Okay, so that was Jenny, and she said, thank everybody for coming. And unfortunately, she's got a bad internet connection and lost it and can't get back on. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up for today. And thank you guys very much. And hopefully we can do this again sometime.